Hello everyone, welcome back to a new episode of the Harstem half hour. That's the day we're gonna be going. Today we're going over a game between Cure and Su, and we're mainly gonna be focusing on Cure. It's gonna be a masterclass in Mech. God, I love alliteration. And it's a pretty cool game. Recently played in the Oli Molly, so I figured just gonna have a quick look at it, see what the moves are that make Cure such a good Mech player, and see what the moves are that Su probably should have done in order to win this game. But we're gonna just mainly be focusing on Cure, so I want to just go over the build order real fast. So we're just opening with a standard Reaper command center. Nothing too fancy going on over here. Just gonna be standard barracks first, Reaper into Marine, and then from there he takes a second gas. Now a lot of the time these days we see fast 3rd CC before second gas, but when playing Mech it's nice to get a fast second gas in order to be able to get a fast Battlecruiser out. A lot of Mech still opens with one Battlecruiser, or well actually 2-3 Battlecruisers, not just one. Bunch of Hellions, and then you'll see them go into triple factory, and from there on go into whatever. So second gas at around 220 is relatively important, I would say. If you want to play Mech, it's nice to have some pressure on the map as well. Kind of confuse your opponent. Hey, what's actually going on over here? Is he playing Mech? Is he playing Bio? Like, you kind of want to keep them in the, put some pressure on to make them have less time to think about stuff. A lot of the time, this is something people don't really think about, but the more pressure you put on your opponent, the more his mind is going to be occupied with just defending the pressure and not so much with the next phase. So if you really want to get away with a good trick, a lot of the time something cool to do is just put on a lot of pressure, a lot of heavy harass in the early game, and then bang, you hit with the surprise. It's a pretty good move. Works quite often. A lot of builds are kind of designed that way. If you think about like a Glaive Adept build where you open with Glaive Adept, then bang, into DT, You distract with the Adepts, then you win with the DT, or Adept Glaive into Disruptor, stuff like that. It's kind of a common concept and makes a lot of sense. So after the factory finishes, he swaps them, starts Hellion production, and he basically gets a tech lab on his starport while he's building the fusion core. There's no real need to build the tech lab on the barracks, for example, because there's plenty of time for that starport. Now, he gets a 3rd command center before 3rd gas as well this game, and you see that he's moving on the map with only 2 Hellions, and as long as there's no full wall, he keeps Hellion 3 and 4 at least temporarily at home, and he's just basically trying to control the creep. It's not going to be easy. I think he didn't even get a single tumor yet. Yes, he didn't. But he's still trying to, and just the fact that they're here makes it a little bit easier, or a little harder for Su to actually spread creep. Like, he needs to be careful. He can't just put a tumor wherever he wants at this point. So here we see Depot gets lifted as it's now a full wall. I think it looks like a semi-full wall at least. And the Hellions kind of make their way across the map, try to look for some kind of run by with the links, and see if they can catch that. Now we're actually gonna figure out if this is a full wall. Nice one, Kev. Not a full wall. I don't think Cure was aware of that either, but he's in position, he chased the link, so all is good in the end of the day. Like I said, Battlecruiser almost continues Hellion production. After the first 4 he takes a small Hellion cut, and then he continues completely into Hellion production. He gets gases before he adds any extra production, because Mech is extremely gas heavy, especially if you compare it to Bio. Obviously, when you play Bio, a lot of your units are going to be Marines, which don't cost any gas. Now, of course, when you play Mech, a lot of your units are going to be Hellions, but every other unit you make is going to be extremely gas intensive. Think of tanks, Cyclones, Thors, Battlecruisers. Don't think I'm missing anything there. All of them, they cost a crap ton of gas, so you always got to be careful there. Yamato usually costs gas as well, so even though he has very early gases, you'll be able to spend it quite easily. And you continue Battlecruiser production. Now, the thing you do with the first Battlecruiser is you can just teleport it across the map majority of the time, unless of course there's a Rochelle or something, then you kind of want to keep it at home. Scout it with those Hellions. You teleport it somewhere, you go in, start right-clicking them drones, and ideally you have a retreat path where you're going to be able to hit 2 bases from that retreat path, and you're going to be able to not get hit by queens. So In this case, this would be such a retreat path. I think this might be one as well, even though it's a little tighter. But like I said, a retreat path, and then you can just rotate into another base. And that's exactly what Cure is doing here. While he's trying to find openings with his Hellions, he's just flying in with the Battlecruiser, right-clicking drones. And the moment too many queens appear, he's like, alright, it has been fun, but I don't really feel the need to stay. And he'll start, hopefully, rotating towards an area where either it's safe or where he believes he can do more damage. And basically you keep doing that until your tactical jump is available. Then you really go in hard, and you pray to the Almighty Lord that you're fast enough at teleporting away, basically. Now, a lot of the time what you see with the second Battlecruiser is that you fly it across the map. And this is because the second Battlecruiser timing is around the time the Spire finishes. Now, this Spire isn't that fast, so it isn't finished yet. But if he would have teleported now, the cooldown on teleport is so long that if Su would have built Corruptors the moment this Spire finishes, probably Cure would have lost this Battlecruiser because he couldn't teleport back home. So right now he has 2 Battlecruisers on the other side of the map, which are capable of teleporting out. If he had teleported this one in, that would not be the case, and then all of a sudden this becomes a big liability on the other side of the map, right? You basically have 400, 300 that can't really be saved anymore, and also is a big part of why you are capable of putting on pressure on your opponent. So you're still harassing on 2 sides with these Battlecruisers at this point. Meanwhile, his Hellion count at home is just chilling, you know, just not doing too much. You got 2 tanks, so with the factories he put on tech lab, the factory 2 and 3. You add 2 tech labs, and most of the time you see people start with 2 tanks. Sometimes you see them start with 4. Depends a bit on what they scout. Of course, you want to get an eBay, and double armory is fair play after factory 2 and 3. Now the armory is in case it's Mutalisk, or even if it's Corruptor Roach, it's nice to get a bunch of turrets. So you see that Cure is setting up for, I think he believes it's going to be Corruptor Roach. So he's setting up for that. Turrets near the tanks, not so much in the mineral lines. If you're playing against Muta, and you know you're playing against Muta, which in this case he is, you much rather have well, obviously also have a turret next to your tanks. But mainly you want to have the turret in the mineral lines. The reason you want a turret next to your tanks against Corruptor Roach is so that the Corruptors can't push away the Battlecruisers, and then it's harder for the Roaches to get in as well, basically. You want an fortified position as possible. So that's kind of what Cure is doing here. Now, repairs his Battlecruiser. As Battlecruiser, like I said before, are a massive asset. You don't really want to lose them. I think he might have lost one, though. I think I missed it, but he lost one over here. He forgot to teleport it. He did have teleport. I already watched this replay, of course. Right. So well prepared these days, guys. You won't believe it. This is a cool move as well, as he knows it's probably going to be something of pressure. So he splits up his Hellion force in 2 parts. Hellions are not going to be too useful against pressure. Like if it's a Roach all-in or Roach pressure, they're kind of nice to have a couple. But they're extremely useful, right? Most of the time, by being on the map, you force the Roaches to stay at home, which is more useful. And if it's Mutalisk, then maybe they can kind of... They're like a Muta magnet, basically. It's like, oh, there's Hellions on the map, let me just try to get them. And of course, you can also get damage done with them, which would even be, that'd be absolute peak. Now, a response I see very often from the top Terrans these days is that whenever they see Mutalisk, is that they, instead of going straight to Thors, is that they want to get 5-6 Cyclones first. The reason for this is not entirely clear for me, and I believe that most Terrans don't even exactly know why they do it either, except that they win more, which is usually good. I actually asked Special about it, or I saw Special talk about it some time ago, and he literally said, I'm not quite sure why, but when it's Muta and I don't get Cyclones, I just tend to lose the game. So I build Cyclones and I lose a lot less. That's a fair way to look at the game. So you probably could figure out the reason, but as I'm not aware of it, I'm not going to pretend to know it. As we see mines being built as well. It's very common against Mutalisk, because a lot of the time the follow-up is going to be Lingbane Muta, and then spreading a couple of mines around helps protect against run-bys, helps protect against big Muta flocks. So it's always nice to have a couple of mines. Of course, you also want to keep a bunch of cars. I like to at least keep a bunch of cars on the map to be able to harass a little bit. You know, try to keep these mutalisks back. Because after his last move, where he lost almost all of his cars, he now doesn't really have much in the form of pressure here. So he's just going to be hiding some mines in tricky locations. So you see both gases are being properly defended right now. And at this point, Cure really is just trying to get up to a supply where he's happy. He wants to really wait for his 2-2 attack, or 2-2 upgrades, and make sure that he can max out with a stable fortified setup, basically. That's going to be his goal over here. And the only tools he's going to be using to harass at this point are the Battlecruisers. The rest is all going to be defensive investments. And the Battlecruisers will perhaps try to keep the other guy on his side of the map. So we see no Thors yet. I think perhaps Cure would have started adding more Thors would have started adding Thors already if he had seen a higher mutaflock. So if it was truly going to be like 25 mutas, which we see a lot against Mech these days, I think instead of going for like 7-8 cyclones, it's 8 cyclones, he would have probably gone for like 4 or 5 cyclones and then go straight into Thors. So perhaps one of the reasons why you want to go cyclone is in case it's like a fake out muta, like this kind of was. I mean, this was like 8-9 mutas into roaches, and then if you already have like 5 Thors producing, it's not ideal against this army. It's nice to have cyclone tank against Roach Ravager, for sure. So Liberators coming in will try to deal with everything. With the sensor tower, you saw everything coming. So Cure had a good position. He took a good fight. You know, if we take a look at the units lost, it's going to be pretty heavily in Cure's favor. So that's, you know, it's good for him, basically. He's going to be glad that he did it. 5th base is about to finish up. You see he has the sensor tower done already. At least one sensor tower, which means that he's going to be able to see almost all the rotations that Su does, as long as these rocks are not down. And that's kind of a big deal. So, Hellions once again. So the moment that he kind of feels stable, and he feels he maybe can put on some pressure, he'll start sending out Hellions again. Battlecruisers go on the other side, and even though they don't achieve much, they do find the army of Su. So they see things happening as well. Like, it's not, that's the beauty of harass. Like it really has 3 functions. So it has the function of clearing a lane, basically. And what I mean with this is, imagine you fly your Battlecruisers like in this path, or in this path, you're going to be sure that there's no counterattacks or run-bys coming over here from the Zerg. So that's function number 1. It's not the main function majority of the time, but it's something that's nice. Now, the second thing it does is it forces attention from the Zerg. Like, Zerg's now, hey, there's 2 Battlecruisers on the map. I might need to deal with that. So it forces a response, and yeah, but basically helps you defend. Harass helps you defend in a way that it pulls units away from the main fight. If your opponent does want to attack you. So it can give you more time at times. And then the third one, of course, if it doesn't get spotted, or even if it does get spotted, you can get damage done, which is, for a lot of people, they think of that as the main reason. But a lot of the time in matchups, attention, like just pulling away army back home, is a big enough deal. And also just pulling away attention. It's really difficult to be engaging into a major fight while you're losing 17 drones at home at your 5th base, you know? So a lot of the time you'll see fights go worse when something intense is happening at home in the terms of harassment. Now, with the sensor tower, Cure is going to be in a fantastic position. He has a very heavy tank army because he's fighting against mainly Roach Ravager, and he's aware of that. However, he still keeps... he has some flexibility in his army, right? So he has these Liberators, he has these Hellbats, he has these Cyclones. So it's not like the moment that this army gets switched out of, that he's going to be in a crap position. Like, it's still going to be possible to have some flexibility against multiple compositions. You know, Liberators are kind of all around. Cyclones are kind of all around. Like, it's not like we're seeing 25 tanks, and the moment a single Broodlord hits the field, the game just ends. No. He's keeping a very flexible army in terms of unit composition. So I would have loved for there to be a sensor tower here already, or something like that. So he really would be capable of spotting this entire unit movement. If you think of this map as a defensively, as a Terran, or just as any race really, you'll see that this area is kind of difficult to attack, this area is impossible to attack, But this is the only area really possible to attack for the Zerg on the right side. And then the other area really is just this. So if you can keep this area occupied with whatever, and you can control these chokes, then the next rotation is gonna go to the far left. So there's really not that many rotations a Zerg can do here to trick a Protoss or a Terran or another Zerg. As long as you keep control of these chokes, and you can keep some control of this. It's a little hard, of course, you can't really be on top of this. But like this, you're gonna, it's a long rotation with a sensor tower, you're gonna have vision. Always try to keep in mind what the most likely spots are that you're gonna get attacked at, and then set up some defenses for that. Once again, we have the Hellion split, and here we see the split coming from Su to deal with it. So he loses 14-15 workers. Now, like I said, it looks like a lot, but it's actually not that big of a deal. It's like 700 minerals. He can just instantly rebuild them as he has plenty of larvae. But it did divert the attention away from the attack that Su most likely wanted to do. He wanted to do some things with his army, as this is an army that kind of wants to be denying bases or trading in some way at least. We now have Thors being added, as I believe that Cure feels extremely safe at the moment. I also added a second sensor tower, that's nice. So he starts adding Thors in case of like a Broodlord transition or some sort, or like a Mass Muta thing. He's seen a lot of Corruptor, so does make some sense. Yeah, small mistake there. A couple of workers go down. And you see how useful these two Battlecruisers have been through the entirety of the game. Like, they've just been going in every single time. They have the teleport available and the Yamato. They fly in, Yamato a unit, then they teleport back. Sometimes they kill 4 or 5 workers, sometimes they don't kill anything. So one Battlecruiser with 33 kills, the other one with 15 kills. Kind of a big deal as well. You see a big engagement by Su into this, and I'm not too big a fan of this one, honestly. I think this was a pretty big error. The thing that Su is afraid of is that the moment that this base gets broken, Su is basically conceding the left side base as well. Not entirely, but it's going to be very difficult to stop it. Once this base is a planetary and tanks can start kind of leapfrogging forward, this base is so hard to hold. And the moment you lose this base as Su, all of a sudden you've basically given your Terran opponent a split map scenario, in that you're playing, what is it, 7 base against 7 base. And the way that Su's army has been working is that he's been getting crap trades, and he wants to be getting some type of momentum on his side and break bases. And so far he really hasn't been able to do that. So for him it's very important that he is up a mining base, basically, because the moment he loses this, see, here we go again. He really does not want that to happen. But he goes in, it's like, alright, I need to break this. The moment this gets up, he's in a world of trouble. Because then he's down a base, and he's never gonna make up that unit lost step, most likely. So it takes a fight that, yeah, I mean, it isn't brilliant. If he would have broken it, it would have been nice, but he actually didn't manage to break it. It's another planetary mission not accomplished. As we see Cure kind of edging slowly but surely, just edging forward, moving, creeping forward with his entire army. And then, I mean, this base is going to be a goner, right? So Su's trying to get as many minerals and as much gas as possible. What he should have done as well is he should have already taken this base. So whenever Zerg is in this position, you want to mine as much from the corner bases as possible in order to steal away potential resources from your Terran opponent. Because this base is going to be hard for Cure to take, but you can imagine a world in which it might eventually fall if the creep here disappears. So once again we have Su, who realizes the importance of this little area, and he's really just sending a lot of units in to deal with it. And every single time he does, he keeps losing more and more, and he doesn't really have the bank for this anymore. So at this point I think Cure is in such a good position that he can actually start taking more straight up fights with his army. So far we've seen him mainly being extremely defensive, and just working from a very compact setup, right? In the way that he was very much on these 5 bases, which were easy to defend against the many rotations that Zerg tries to do. Now that he has this 6th base, I think he's going to just straight push to the 7th and probably set up a planetary here as well. That is going to allow Su to get some damage in, usually. The moment you spread yourself out thinner, sure, you're going to get more resources, and it's nice to have planetaries in certain locations, but it also means you're going to be more set up for run by. So I wouldn't even mind if Cure actually just keeps this base and doesn't take the 7th base yet. It's actually going to get kind of broken here, which is bad. I think he is a couple of Thors on the map. Bunch of Thors coming from here. You still have the 4 tanks on that right side as well. So this actually was very, very painful. He might have spread himself a little bit too thin here. And as you see, the army of Cure is really just evolving right now. We see more Thors being added, more Hellions, less tanks, which means it's more of an army that can move around the map quicker. And he does that for 2 reasons. 1, he's probably afraid of Brute Lords. And 2, it's because he believed when he was crafting this army that he was going to need to be able to spread himself a bit thinner and probably push forward more aggressively, which with tanks it's very difficult to move across the map and to even move defensively in some cases, but with Thors that becomes a little easier. And also Thors are completely fine against roaches, of course. They do amazing damage. So yeah, it's just a nice all-around unit to have at this phase of the game. The only thing he needs to really be afraid of is like burrowed infestors, but they don't seem to be out on the map yet. There's no Brute Lords coming in yet. Is there even a Greater Spire? No, it's not even a Greater Spire. It's good upgrades though here for Su. Same for Cure, of course, who has 3/3. Continues with the Hellion harassment. Just trying to perhaps create some plays. The nice thing about that, like if you pull a move like that and there's still an objective on the left side, like trying to take down a base, then these run-bys are very useful, but this one wasn't that great. You know, you kill 9 workers, that's nice, but it's not going to be super useful. I wouldn't mind if he does the reverse this time. So he sends like 5 cars over here and then moves his entire army to the right side. That's the kind of play that in my eyes would make a lot more sense at this point. So you kind of want to do a... This is another thing that run-bys can do, by the way, is they get the distraction away from your opponent kind of meeting your army in a non-setup location or in a bad angle. So you send like your cars to the left side and then bang, your entire army moves over here. And before the Zerg really realizes, because he's busy dealing with the harass, just like that, you're going to be in a sick position. Here's going to be moving forward now. If you think about why he's pushing out here, you might think he wants to deny these bases, which I think it probably would be possible for him to have a straight up fight on any point of the map. But what he wants to do is he's just going to go for a split map scenario and he's going to start threatening this base. And if he starts threatening this base, he starts threatening the cutoff towards the main base of the Zerg as well, which could be an issue. So once again, this quite isn't a key position yet, but at some point Su is going to need to fight, or he's going to need to do some kind of base trade. Now, at this point, if you're in such an aggressive position, something that's cool to do once again is just send a couple of Hellions to the side, as that might allow your army to move forward a bit faster, gives a little more wiggle room really. So it's always nice to do just a little run by here and there. We see Cure actually kind of splitting up his army in half in some way. I'm not quite sure about that. He's just sending it back. He's probably afraid of a counterattack. He's not afraid of a counterattack over here. You see that? He really just cares about these bases, the currently mining bases, which is interesting. I'm not quite sure if this was how important this base was. I think Cure just honestly is trying to bait a fight at this point. He's like, you know what? I'm completely fine with splitting map. I'm up like 12. I don't think he knows how far ahead he is in the unit slots. He knows that he's been winning fights though. So he knows if I just mine the same, sure, Su mined a little bit from here and a lot of it was gas as well, which is annoying. But he says, if I can just force fights now that are somewhat even, I'm going to be in a fine spot. I'm not a massive fan of this fight though, because he's fighting with half his army right now against the entire army of Su, which, you know, I'm not quite sure if that's the greatest thing. This is actually the first fight where Su had an efficient fight of some sort. I mean, it was 12k before, it's 12k now, so it's actually a fine fight for Su to take. Now, of course, this is also okay for Cure because he's up in units lost, but ideally if you're a meching player and you're fighting against an army that consists of 30 roaches and, I don't know, like 12 corruptors and 15 ravagers, you want to be able to take way better fights, right? You don't just want to trade out 1 for 1 if you spend so much effort in crafting your beautiful army. So right now, Cure is pretty content with how this setup is done. He's like, okay, I have 3 tanks here, I have planetaries. And you could say, well, what happens if Su sends his, like, half of his army over here into the planetary now? Well, because Cure would just be pushing into this space, and then this space, Su would lose literally all of his income. Perhaps Cure would also, but he does have 2 planetaries, and there's some semi-defenses here, which would help and probably at least get a decent enough trade, especially if it's just half of the army. I don't think there's really enough firepower in this army for Su, or enough eco to really, like, you can't really throw him 50 banelings here right now, you know, he doesn't have the eco for that, so it would have to be a significant part of his army. And I think at that point Su is just gonna get absolutely blasted by whatever Cure throws at him. These bases are gonna fall quickly, and planetaries usually trade cost effectively as well, especially if there's 3 tanks next to it. So Su goes with the surprise switch, and as I said before, usually Cure was pretty good at keeping somewhat of a flexible army, and this is actually the first time where I feel like Cure, he went a little hard on the tanks, right? He went 18 tanks, he really didn't expect the Broodlord transition anymore, he only has 3 torches, so he's actually gonna be forced to go back home at this point, after killing this base. And he really needs to run back quickly. He needs to get these Thors out. Now, something you want to be doing is you want to be sending away units that don't fight well against this army and kind of go for a semi-base trade of sorts. So whether that's Hellions, Hellbats, or even tanks, it doesn't really matter. Like, he could have 15 tanks here, you could have 3 tanks here, you could have 28 tanks here. Like, it's completely irrelevant. There's too many Broodlords for the tanks to really be able to do anything whatsoever. It's very similar if your opponent has 75 banelings and your army consists of like 8 Archons, 5 Stormers, and 28 Zealots. Like, 28 Zealots are gonna do the same amount as 2 Zealots are. They're all gonna die to banelings, and it's completely irrelevant. They have way more use in a run-by scenario, because you might kill some of his production, you might force him to send part of his army back, or you might force him to go completely all-in. Like, at this moment, this push is a lot more all-in than it was before if you're losing all your production structures, right? It just becomes a lot harder. And all your reinforcements that might be able to do something now will have to go here. And just like that, I'm not sure if Cure actually would have been able to defend this if it wasn't for this run-by, because 6 Thors are good, but there's a lot of Broodlords now. 11 Broodlords, still 3 Fungalers as well. I think some of them had Neural too. So if you just grab 1 or 2 Thors, if you manage to get that, I think that's you're in a really sick position all of a sudden. A couple of Transfuses ready as well. And this army was going to be useless anyway, so you're basically just using your army to get rid of an important part of your opponent's army. Now the Broodlords have to go back, and as a result, Cure manages to take out these 2 bases once again. So really cool play by Cure, kind of taking a situation where it felt like it was going to go crap, and actually the tank run by, which honestly isn't all that common anymore these days. The tank run by has kind of fallen out of favor. I mean, at this point the game's pretty much over, right? Cure has good income, he has a big bank, he has a good army. I believe she's gonna absolutely blast through this, right? Thors are pretty decent. No, it's not gonna blast through this. Actually takes a crap fight. Right, so this is the fight that could have happened over here if it wasn't for the tank run by. That's the difference between a good player and a top player, is that they realize, hey, these 15 tanks probably have more value on the other side of the map, and do a tank run by. A modern day classic. Shakespeare is jealous. And with that, Cure ends his little masterclass in TVZ Mech. And with that, I end my Harstem half hour. Exactly at 30 minutes. Hello. Thank you all for watching. I said thank you all for watching, but my thing isn't working. So subscribe to my channel. I love you all. Bye bye.